Yeah.
This is Geek Therapy Radio.
What are we waiting for?
And now your mental curator, Johnny Hamburger.
Welcome, all of my geeks and geeks to be to Midweek Geek, the midweek edition of Geek Therapy Radio. You can catch Geek Therapy Radio on the weekend on KPRC 950, but the podcast drops as usual on Friday afternoon, usually. I try to catch you around lunchtime, but if I don't drop it at lunchtime, I definitely catch you by the time you're commuting on your way home from work on Friday. That's how I try to time it here on Geek Therapy Radio. But once again, welcome into Midweek Geek with me, Johnny Hamburger, your mental curator. I've got a couple things I actually want to talk about on this edition of Midweek Geek. Not that I don't talk about things on other editions of Midweek Geek, because I most certainly do. But I want to talk about some E3 highlights so far from the Electronic Entertainment Expo. Not from Electronic Arts, that's a company that makes games, but I want to talk about E3, some highlights from E3 so far as it is ongoing at the time of recording. I want to talk a little bit about the new Tesla Roadster for 2020. I know that's kind of old news. We know that that's Elon Musk's newest toy he's releasing into the Tesla automobile line, but there's something really ridiculously cool that he just announced for the 2020 Tesla Roadster that just makes me giggle. It's so neat. But first, I want to talk about, yet again, because it's just, there's all these developments that keep happening with this story, and that is the Atari VCS. I don't know how many of you have noticed, but last week, the internet and YouTube and Reddit was all abuzz with Atari is scamming you. Get your money back now. The Atari VCS will never happen. It is just a scam. I just want to talk about that a little bit and how ridiculous that is. It started with a Reddit thread, basically quoting the guy who developed Tempest 4000, that the developer of Tempest 4000, which you can see in the VCS's promotional videos, the developer for VCS, or the developer for Tempest 4000 said, I had no idea that Atari was using this. I had no idea. Nobody told me it was going to be on the VCS. That, and they say that the gameplay footage was faked, which I don't dispute. Let me get into all the details. To me, just for my opinion, and it's probably true. Let me know if you're watching this on YouTube in the comments below, whether or not you agree with this, or maybe you know way more in depth about it. Maybe you've heard something that I haven't heard in my research. But let me give my testimony and my opinion on this matter. Is Atari scamming us? Should anybody who backed the Atari VCS crowdfunding get their money back? It's something around $3 million at this point that they've raised within hours of announcing this, of announcing the Atari VCS. Should you get your money back? Is Atari scamming you? Just listen to that phrase I just said. Is Atari scamming you? The Atari VCS is not the brainchild of some dude in his garage tinkering with a soldering iron in some CPUs and graphics cards in memory. It is not just some garage or backyard upstart. We are talking about Atari. Atari, in one form or another, has been around since, I want to say definitely the 70s, with the Atari 7800, or Atari 2600, Pong, Atari, and Steve Jobs started at Atari. Atari has been around since at least the 70s, in one form or another, as either a manufacturer of consoles and games or just a developer of games, and now getting back into development of consoles. Atari's been around. So let me say that phrase again from the beginning. Is Atari scamming you? That doesn't make much sense. Atari is an established company that's been around for decades. So the first red flag in your brain when you see these YouTube videos and these rants and things is Atari scamming you? That should set off these bells that, no, it probably isn't. This is probably just hype. This is just clickbait, really, is what it amounts to. Let me explain why I think that is. I'm not saying that just because Atari is a huge company that they can't be scamming you. I'm just saying that it's extremely unlikely. It's like saying Ford is scamming you. It's like Ford has announced the 2019 Mustang or 2020 Mustang, or that Elon Musk here has announced the 2020 Tesla Roadster. Are you going to get scammed if you put a deposit down on that new product? If Ford says, we're coming out with the 2020 Mustang, are you going to get scammed because, oh, surprise, we're not going to do it? One argument towards the VCS people are making towards this possibly being a scam is that there is no working prototype yet. So let me address that issue. No, there may not be a working Atari VCS prototype yet. But if you go to look at all the specs of the Atari VCS, the AMD A10 APU, the 32 gigabytes of eEMC memory, the 4 gigabytes of RAM, 8 gigabytes, I forget off the top of my head at the moment. So the CPU/APU, that exists. The Radeon graphics processing unit built into the A10 APU, obviously that exists. My point is, to the layperson listening, that all the hardware in the VCS's specs exists right now. Essentially, hardware-wise, you can build a VCS into a shoebox right now today. The operating system it uses is Linux. To my knowledge, Linux is still a very viable operating system, freely accessible today. So, the hardware exists today. The operating system exists today. In fact, the hardware that's going into the Atari VCS in a different modified form is already in the PlayStation 4. The PlayStation uses an AMD CPU and graphics processing unit. It's already there. I think, it might be 8-core now. PS3, I think, was tri-core. Anyways, AMD already makes the chips that are in the PS4, and Tempest 4000 exists for the PS4. They're going on this scam trail because the developer of Tempest 4000 said he wasn't aware that Atari was using it on the VCS. But since they were using footage of Tempest 4000 in the promotional video for the VCS, they took that as a scam. It doesn't actually run on the hardware. Yes, it does run on the hardware. It's just not in the Atari VCS box yet. You can run Tempest 4000 on the chipset, on the AMD chipset that is going to be in the VCS. So just because you're not seeing it running on an actual VCS doesn't mean that this whole thing is a scam. The other reason why I highly doubt it's a scam, and again, if you watch these YouTube videos, it's never the presenter, it's never the host saying for sure that it is a scam. Again, it's a clickbaity title to get you in there, and the title to this Midweek Geek is probably going to be a little clickbaity. But my conclusion isn't going to be, I'm not going to tell you in the title, into the description, you should get your money back if you backed the VCS. And on that note, that's another reason why I'm saying that the VCS is likely not a scam. Because it is crowd-funded, it has already achieved almost $3 million of backing. Atari, an established company, has further established to the tune of $3 million that there is going to be an initial market for this device. If they did this crowdfunding project and they barely reached their goal, maybe that's a little bit more iffy. But they absolutely obliterated their crowdfunding goal. It was only a few $100,000. That was the goal, to actually make the VCS, to get it off the ground. But they've smashed through it many, many times over, to the tune of $3 million. Atari, an established company, has further established that there is a market for this unit. So it would be extremely foolish for an established company to say, screw you, and cut and run with your money. Atari would never again make any other video games. Atari, to my knowledge, is still a relatively profitable company that just develops software. There just makes no sense. It is corporate suicide for this Atari VCS to be a scam. Another thing, we are only a few days into the Atari VCS having been crowdfunded. It's only a few days, really, into the whole idea of the Atari VCS existing at all. So to say that this is speculation is an understatement. You know, it's slated for a release in about this time in 2019. About 1 year from now, in 2019, they should start shipping units. We should start seeing review units way before that. I will start to worry, and I will start to, like I said, legitimately worry that this is a scam if we get to 2019, if we get, 6 months from now and there's still not a prototype, there's still not a working prototype, then I will get a little bit more shaky on this matter. There'll be a little bit more credibility to this wild idea that Atari is scamming us. But right now, literally days after the announcement of the Atari VCS, people saying it's the Tempest 4000 footage wasn't running on an actual Atari VCS, and the developer of the Tempest 4000 had no idea that it was going to be on the Atari VCS. It's a little premature to say it's a scam. Let's talk about Tempest 4000 for a second, and why the argument that Tempest 4000 not running on an actual VCS is proof of a scam. Atari owns Tempest. Atari has owned Tempest since 1981 when it was released on the Atari 2600. The guy who developed Tempest 4000 is doing it under full acknowledgement of Atari. He had to apply to Atari to make Tempest 4000 because Atari owns the copyright to Tempest. So people saying Tempest 4000 isn't running on an Atari VCS, and the guy who developed Tempest 4000 had no idea that Atari was going to run on the VCS. It doesn't matter what the freaking dude who developed a Tempest 4000 thinks, because Atari owns Tempest in the first place. So if Atari wants to show footage of Tempest 4000 running on VCS, whether or not it's actually running on VCS, Atari can do that. Atari owns it. So, kind of back to a previous point, the promotional footage showing Tempest 4000 running on the Atari VCS, despite the Atari VCS not existing yet, does not bother me. I guarantee you there's stuff going on at E3 right now that has happened in the past where developers showcase a new game, a new console game, but during the demo they're running it on a PC. For God's sake, this is something that has been something that's happened many times in the past. They show the game or games running, knowing it's going to come out for PS4 or Xbox, but during the demo, it's running on a PC. Atari ain't the first to do this at all. That's common practice. So those are really all the reasons I think saying that the Atari VCS is a scam and going so far as saying you should get your money back is dangerous. We're a few days out. There's all these factors that I just explained that fly in the face of the Atari VCS being a scam. It might be a scam. I'm not saying that even though everything I explained flies in the face of the scam, that it might not wind up being a scam. Sure, Atari might be pulling a fast one on all of us. Atari, a huge established company, is going to commit corporate suicide by scamming people. That's like saying Ford would do the same thing. Dodge would do the same thing. That's like saying Apple would do the same thing, or Microsoft would do the same thing. Or Tesla or SpaceX. These are established companies. They're probably not going to scam you. Once they scam you, they stop making money. Atari scamming you is going to stop making money. I've talked about the Atari VCS, preliminary thoughts on it in a past Midweek Geek and in a past Geek Therapy Radio, so you can hear what I think about that. But just to recap, Atari VCS is going to face stiff competition when it comes out in 2019. That's for true. It's going to compete on the low end of the price scale against the the Nintendo Switch, and the NVIDIA Shield TV. On the higher end of the price spectrum, it's going to compete against consoles. So no matter where it's priced, it's going to be in direct competition with established hardware for a device that essentially is just another streaming device. So Atari VCS, to be successful, has to have some amazing breakout first-party games, exclusive titles, just like the Nintendo Switch had to. The Nintendo Switch would not have survived if it wasn't for Zelda, if it wasn't for Mario Odyssey, if it wasn't for great games that came out for it, including a couple third-party games like Rocket League and whatever else, Street Fighter 30th Anniversary Edition. If not for a couple of third-party established games, it needed some exclusives, and that's why the Switch worked, and that's what the VCS is going to have to do for it to work, because just competing with hardware alone isn't going to be enough. But it's not a scam. It is so far-fetched of an idea, especially a few days out from the announcement, that this would be a scam. Let's move on. Atari VCS is probably not a scam. Even if it's not a scam, when it comes out in 2019, it's going to face stiff competition in its market segment. Let's move on to some E3 highlights, and then I'm going to wrap it up with the announcement about the 2020 Tesla Roadster. E3, some things that have stuck out to me. December's Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, like I said, coming out in December, includes every existing character plus Ridley. So I keep forgetting that Ryu is in Super Smash Bros. I think I'll be way more likely to play this version of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, because it's going to come out on the Switch, and I didn't really play the last Smash Bros. On the 3DS too much. It was a great game, but I just didn't like the controls on the 3DS. So the fact that it's coming out for the Switch is going to be really nice. And I got to remember that Ryu's in it, that I can throw Hadoukens and beat Mario up with Ryu. So I'm probably going to get that. Square Enix. There's a Kingdom Hearts 3. It's finally coming out. They've announced that at E3. So all you fans of Kingdom Hearts, the Disney role-playing game, yes, we're getting number 3. I was never a huge fan of the franchise. Honestly, never really played it too much. I played a little bit, and I did like it. I love Final Fantasy. So Kingdom Hearts 3, yes, it's coming out. What else? Just Cause 4. I haven't played through all of Just Cause 3, but Just Cause 2 and Just Cause 3 are such great games. I'm actually excited for Just Cause 4. That's another Square Enix title. So be on the lookout for that, Just Cause 4. Is there anything else from E3 I want to talk about? No, it was basically just Smash Bros. Ultimate's coming out with every existing character. Kingdom Hearts 3 is coming out from Square Enix, and Square Enix also announced Just Cause 4. If you're into Fallout 76 from Bethesda, good for you. It's sacrilege as a geek, I know, to say that I was never huge into Fallout. But Fallout 76 coming out, trailer looks pretty neat. So maybe I'll check that out. Let me end this version of Midweek Geek with a little quick story from Tesla. The 2020 Tesla Roadster will have, at least in an option, small rocket thrusters. That just makes me so happy. And it's not gimmicky. Apparently, and it's not all fake. No, it's not going to be rocket fuel. What these rocket thrusters are actually going to be are compressed air nozzles, basically put all around the car somewhere to add thrust, actual thrust to the launch control of the Tesla Roadster. By the way, the Tesla Roadster, even without rocket thrusters, already hits 60 miles an hour in less than 2 seconds. It's 1.9 seconds from 0 to 60. So there's no word on how much faster it's going to be with these rocket thrusters to 60. But it's going to be a little faster, and you can say my car has rocket boosters on it, and it'd be legit. Now, again, it is compressed air, and my first thought was, how are they going to store that compressed air? They're getting rid of the back seats, and Elon Musk already said the back seats were just for kids anyway, so it's just going to be a 2-seater Roadster. That's not a big loss. And the air tanks, you don't have to buy new air tanks every few months or anything like that. The air tanks are refilled by the electric motors. And the range on this thing, on the Tesla Roadster in 2020, is going to be around 620 miles. So you're going to chew into the range a little bit as you refill your rocket boosters, your air-powered rocket boosters. That's the coolest thing in the freaking world. I'm sorry. That is awesome. That's going to do it for this edition of Midweek Geek. Be good to each other, my geeks. Most equally as important, be good to yourself too. How can you be good to others if you are not good to yourself? So indulge in your hobby this week. If you don't know what hobby you might be interested in, or you might want to find a new hobby to get into, listen to old past episodes of Geek Therapy Radio. If you are a subscriber to the podcast, which I highly recommend, you will have all these topics. You can go through the last 60 or so weeks of all these different topics. Maybe find a hobby that interests you. Just go buy some Legos on your way home from work and put together some Legos for 5 or 10 minutes. You might find that you really, really like it. But that being said, I'm Johnny Hamburger, your mental curator. I will see you in a few days when I drop the regular version of Geek Therapy Radio on Friday, and I'll see you on the weekend on the air on KPRC 950 AM for the real broadcast of Geek Therapy Radio. Hint, hint, it's just basically airing the podcast. I try to keep it simple for you in that way. Other than that, I'll see you in a few days. Take care, everybody. Who among us doesn't love great beer, amazing food, and arcade games? That's why I'm stoked beyond geek belief to tell you about Kung Fu Saloon, located at 5317 Washington Avenue, right here in Houston. Kung Fu Saloon on Washington Avenue has the geek trinity covered, and then some. Of course they have the most excellent beer on tap, the nomiest food off the grill, and the vintage arcade games we love. But you can also get your Tay-Tay on with karaoke, your super fan on with televised sports, and your rug cut to the best music and DJs on Washington Avenue. In addition to arcade games, get your competitive fix with Giant Jenga, Giant Connect 4, 3 skee-ball lanes, shuffleboard, and foosball. Get your drink, food, game, karaoke, and dance on. Or step to Street Fighter 2 with me and get your geek fanny served. Hadouken! Kung Fu Saloon, 5317 Washington Avenue. Visit www.kungfusaloonhouston.com for more details and dress code info.